For eons, the celestial beings that roamed the galaxies had learned one simple truth: emotions were the fuel of all sentient life. Every race that existed, every species that evolved, carried a spectrum of emotions that dictated their survival and growth. But among them all, there was one being, one godlike entity, that thrived on consuming these emotions, particularly fear and pain. It had wandered the universe for millennia, feeding on the anguish of countless species, growing stronger with each conquest. The more it consumed, the more powerful it became, until it was no longer just a creature of hunger, but a cosmic force that shaped the very essence of existence. The entity, known only as Zorith, was both a god and a parasite, a being of endless hunger, and it had found its next target, Earth. Zorith arrived on Earth under the cover of darkness, its massive form cloaking the sky, blotting out the sun. Its tendrils reached out, brushing the edges of the atmosphere, sending ripples through the planet's electromagnetic field. For a moment, the world froze in terror. The very air seemed to thicken, and an oppressive dread swept over the people of Earth. The invasion had begun. Cities trembled beneath the entity's influence, and the hearts of men and women alike filled with a dread they had never known. Zorith fed on their fear, watching as panic spread across the globe. It was accustomed to this. This was the way of all living beings. Fear, terror, anxiety, the emotions it craved, would flood the world, and it would grow stronger. But something unexpected happened. As Zorith fed, it began to notice a peculiar resistance in the humans. Instead of crumbling under the pressure of its invasion, they fought back. Their fear did not drive them to surrender, as it had done with countless other species. Instead, humans were filled with something else, a raw, unyielding determination. A fire that burned even brighter in the face of their destruction. The more Zorith consumed, the more it was confronted by an emotion it had never encountered: defiance. It wasn't fear or pain that sustained them, but an unwavering will to survive, a spirit that could not be broken, no matter how intense the suffering. Confused and intrigued, Zorith tried again. It increased the pressure, deepening the horror it unleashed. It sent nightmares into the minds of the humans, orchestrating visions of terror that would have driven any other species to madness. But instead of collapsing, the humans grew stronger. They rose from the ashes, fighting not only to survive but to resist the entity's influence. Zorith's tendrils thrummed with power, attempting to crush humanity, to feed off their despair. But the humans did not despair. They dug in their heels, their eyes alight with something the entity could not comprehend. The more the entity fed, the more it struggled to control its power. Each attempt to draw from the humans' suffering only seemed to enhance their resistance. It fed on their pain and sorrow, but the more it consumed, the more the humans seemed to grow, to rise against it. Zorith's form began to distort. The raw energy it had stolen was no longer enough to feed it. It began to feel weak. The power that had always made it invincible, unstoppable, was beginning to wane. Something was wrong. Humanity's emotions, once thought to be fuel for its hunger, had become something more, a force it could no longer control. The very thing it had been feeding on had turned against it. In desperation, Zorith tried a new tactic. It reached into the minds of the humans, its psychic tendrils latching onto their consciousness. It tried to possess them, to bend their wills to its own. It sought to break them from the inside out, to seize control of their very hearts and minds. But as it probed deeper, it encountered something it had never faced before: humanity's innate resilience. The deeper it pushed, the stronger the resistance became. It encountered memories of love, of hope, of moments where humanity had defied all odds. It encountered the raw, untapped power of the human heart, the force that had sustained them through millennia of hardship, wars, and calamities. At first, Zorith tried to push these emotions aside, but they only grew stronger, more intense, until they began to overwhelm it. The alien god had underestimated humanity. It had thought them fragile, weak, easy prey. But instead, they were more powerful than it could have ever imagined. The pure power of the human will, an emotion far more primal and uncontrollable than fear, began to tear at the fabric of its existence. The alien god's form twisted, bent under the weight of its own hunger, as the human heart surged through it like a river breaking free of its banks. Zorith began to scream, an inhuman wail that reverberated across the very fabric of reality, as it was consumed not by the human's fear, but by the very thing it had sought to manipulate, their boundless strength of spirit. In a final, desperate attempt to regain control, Zorith tried to possess a human directly, to fuse with their body and mind. But as it made contact with the human heart, it was not absorbed, it was repelled. The human's heart, filled with all the love, defiance, and hope that had driven humanity forward for centuries, exploded outward in a wave of unimaginable energy. Zorath, for the first time in its existence, was overwhelmed by the sheer force of human emotion. It was not a god anymore, it was a mere shadow, a being driven mad by the unstoppable tide of humanity's resolve. It writhed in agony, unable to comprehend what had happened, as it was cast out of Earth, its presence banished from the planet by the very thing it had sought to consume. As the dust settled and the skies cleared, humanity stood victorious. The alien threat had been eradicated, not through brute force or weapons of mass destruction, but through the power of the human spirit. It was a victory that no one had expected, not even the humans themselves. They had proven that there was more to them than survival. They had proven that, when pushed to the edge, humanity could not only endure but fight back with a force stronger than any alien god could comprehend. The heart of humanity had triumphed, and Zorath was no more. But as the survivors looked up to the stars, they knew one thing. Humanity's heart was an untapped force, a power beyond reckoning. And the universe would never be the same.